Happy day, Tyler Tomlinson.
What is happening, my man?
Man, it's been a while. It's been too long.
No, since I saw you last year, it's been like, World Cup commercials, and you're like
I know.
dabbling with influencers.
Yeah, hobnobbing. I
Jeez.
can't tell you who we filmed it for, but they brought Rush Soccer into it as in Philadelphia for a World Cup commercial, so that you'll see.
You're signing like NDAs and already and stuff.
Yeah.
God.
Now,
You're
what I can tell you, though, and Desi will appreciate this, is that you have the opportunity to be the official match ball provider for the World Cup. They're selecting 9 kids, and it's the person who literally walks the ball out to them. And they get all expense trip paid for 2 for the World Cup. And it's only for certain ages. So Harrison is in that age. So, yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's for everyone.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So pretty
That would
excited.
be fun.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be neat? Mila could be the one in Kansas City. I'm like, well, can you send me somewhere else? Like,
My kid would like drop the ball.
She would trip. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
rolls over.
Would you leave her at that point? Or like, whose kid is that?
I would leave the stadium.
Find your own ride home. You're an embarrassment to the Tomlinson name. Yeah. That would be fun. You wouldn't do that. Man, how was season? You're done. I know our seasons are crazy, but we're heading in. We got a cool guest, though. I meant to tell you, JB from Soccer Dad Pod is going to be on. We're going to talk about the NCAA changes or the possible extension. We're going to discuss Abby Wambach, which is new for us to.
Wow, yeah.
Name dropping there.
Blast from the past.
She was fun to watch. But what's new, man? Everything good? I saw your Halloween, and it's
season was fast and furious. We didn't make the playoffs. We had a chance, but wasn't in the cards for us this year. And then I dressed up as Pitbull for Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah, not my choice. Definitely, I don't think I would ever choose to be Pitbull for Halloween, but it worked out. I just put on a bald cap and some sunglasses, really.
I did see that. I did not realize who you were. I'm going to be totally honest with you.
That's okay. Someone asked if I was Snoop Dogg, and I said, you really don't know your music celebrities. So
I knew for sure you were not Snoop Dogg. I had that locked out, but I wouldn't have guessed Pitbull. I saw the bald cap, and I saw, what was Jess? Was she Pitbull as well?
She was Dr. Evil.
Oh, that's right, because of the cat. Yeah, because of Zuko.
And then my kid was Mr. Clean. Have you put it all together yet?
I mean, you're a bald.
That's it. We're famous bald dudes.
Okay.
That was my kid's idea, not mine.
Really?
Yeah, that's what she wanted to. I don't know where she came up with it, why she wanted to. I didn't even know she knew who Mr. Clean was, other than what do they have? The magic erase things?
Yeah, that's still pretty big. Is the theme song still, does she know the theme song? Mr. Clean?
Mr. Clean. I don't know. I guess that's still out there at some places. I feel like he was more of a cartoon celebrity when we were growing up.
Yeah.
But you're right. I guess the product's still out there doing well.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, let's get started. This is, we're heading into Cap Chat Live, and this is, I can say it's November at least, and it's Harrison's birthday. We'll give a shout out for Harrison. Today he turns 13. But this is Cap Chat Live. You're listening to Cap Chat, the #1 soccer recruitment podcast in the United States. This is Cap Chat. Hey, let's dive in. I do want to get started right away because we haven't heard from you for a while. Let's do Tyler's trends, and I want to bring JB out because we're going to have some cool things. Let's kind of do Tyler's trends right away.
I tend to think of myself as a one-man wolf pack, and my wolf pack grew by one.
It's time for Tyler's trends.
Yahtzee.
All right. Well, it's been a while since we've trends come full circle, Josh. That's why they're trends. And things that we've covered in the past start to creep their heads back in again. And this is a simple one, but I'm I'm hyper focused on it for some reason, but I feel like, and I know we're going down this road of it's pretty much highlight video time, right? We got to be putting these things together and making sure that you're sending them out and they look good. And I think one of the #1 things that I'm seeing right now, and as I said, maybe I'm hyper focused, but it's opponent goalkeeping. And I know we talk about opponents got to look good, pick your best games, and then your highlights out of those games. Be careful. But I'm seeing this big trend right now of opponents goalkeepers. I think I even threw you a couple on Snapchat the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, God, and once again, If it's like the 5th or 6th highlight in, maybe it's not as bad, still don't do it. But I'm talking like 1st and 2nd highlights, like just horrible goalkeeping mistakes by the opponent.
Yeah.
It's a giant turnoff for college coaches.
And what you're saying is don't put that as your goal because the keeper fell over and that's not a
Yes.
good goal. Okay.
No, and like if they can't judge a ball in the air, or if they don't dive, like this could be on the, this isn't just girls, this is boys and girls. If a goalie doesn't dive on your shot and they kind of let it go in, that's a really poor indicator of a good indicator of your low level being poor. And that's been an issue, I feel like, resurfacing again in the last month or so with highlight videos that I see coming through and talking to some other college coaches. We have to be aware of that. And so, A, be aware of your opponents, and B, be aware of the goalkeeper that you're playing against and the effort that that person is putting out, because that's going to be a judgment on the college coach's perspective when they're watching your highlight video.
Yeah. Yeah. And highlights, I think, are getting worse because as technology's gotten better, you're seeing more and more people thinking they can make them on their own, which I applaud. But we're still not seeing quality highlight videos. We're seeing stuff like that. Like, oh, my kid scored a goal. Cool.
Yeah, I think we talked about that on some of our past ones, just a couple other reminders. Just because it's a point doesn't mean it's a highlight.
Yeah.
That's what a term that we put out that said if you score a goal or have an assist, it doesn't mean it's a highlight, right? A highlight, it's supposed to highlight you. And then we also gave the advice of just because it's emotionally driven moment for a highlight also doesn't mean it's a highlight. Like if it's a big goal in a big game, and look, I've been a part of games where we score really big goals, Josh, and everyone goes crazy, but the goal was garbage.
Yeah.
It bounced off 5 people and someone missed it, and then everyone's going crazy because maybe it's a playoff goal or something like that. Just because it's emotionally charged doesn't mean it's for your highlight video.
Yeah.
And so those are some other tips that we've talked about in the past that I'd like to reiterate today while I'm super focused on the opponent's goalkeeper as a trend that has not been great in the last few weeks as these highlight videos come around.
Yeah. I like it, dude. No, I think it's valid. And it is a topic we continue to talk about is highlight videos. And it is worth the shout out for Rush is that we can make your highlight video for you. But yeah, that is good. No, I appreciate that. Good Tyler's Trends. Good to be back, Tyler. Good to be back. So
that one was for Ruthie. I missed her.
I know I did miss Ruthie.
Yeah.
All right. There's the so let's I'm gonna bring on JB, Soccer Dad Pod, and so he's there in the St. Louis Billikens. He's in the background. There you go. Ooh.
Nice merch.
Even the ripped off Run DMC merch there.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, there we go. I like that. We don't have any merch.
You have your book behind you.
We do have a book.
That's all you got.
It's our book. Yeah. So, hey, man. So, welcome. Let's do a shameless plug for Soccer Dad Pod and kind of tell us what you guys do, and then let's.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. I'm sitting back here in the shadows, waiting and listening to Tyler's take, and I was just chomping at the bit because we take little snippets like that, we turn it into an hour and 15 minutes of useless banter, and that is the Soccer Dad Pod. Yeah. So no, we're we stumbled into the show, to be honest. We 2 of the 3 of us played collegiately at high levels. All 3 of our boys play academy soccer here in St. Louis, which is the soccer capital of America. We'll get that out of the way. And I have a background in production and, standing on the sidelines at all these practices and games. The 3 of us would just, banter about how smart we were or are when it comes to the game. And we're like, well, why don't we just put mics in front of us? And we're 55 episodes later and 3 years in, and, we don't see any stop anytime soon. And we've really kind of leaned into exactly what you guys probably talk about, as often as you do your show, youth soccer in particular, pathway, getting to college, academy versus high school, and all those things in between. And, it's just game we love, and that's the show.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. And I'm going to be joining the show in the next couple of days anyway, so that'll be fun as well. We love to ramble and talk, and so, yeah, excited.
Yeah, it's been good. It's one of those things too. When we started the show, being here in St. Louis, our kids grew up in Scott Gallagher Soccer Club, which was Bush, which was Gallagher. the legends walk amongst us. So when it was time to like ask for guests, there's Al Trost. Oh, hey, Sorber, what's up? You want to come on? And they're just not normal guests, but they are normal here. So that really helped us kind of feed the show. And then what we've really figured out is it comes down to parents and kids. What do they get out of it? What are they doing? What club are they choosing? And where are they gonna take it? Or where is the game going to take them? And it's been great. That's why looking forward to have you on and hear about Rush, in your role at the club and, creating that transaction, that conduit, that pipeline into dream fit, best fit, right fit, whatever that looks like. And it'd be fun.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. So let's dive in. We do something called parent questions from the internet. Normally we make fun of parents. This one I do think is going to be, and then we want to talk about the NCAA, kind of what their projected changes are. But I want to talk the kind of the parent questions from the internet.
Warning. Some viewers may find the following footage deeply disturbing.
Cat Chat Live presents Parent Questions from the Internet.
Offside.
So there has been Abby Wambach put out a statement. I feel like most people have heard it. So we can see here that, I just kind of read it, but Abby Wambach, we all know, World Cup winner, fantastic, one of the best players on the women's side, and one of the best players ever. But so her message is practice isn't for you, it's for them. And she clearly said, don't go ever, period. Don't go. So when a child feels eyes on them, they play to impress, not to improve. They edit their decisions. They stop experimenting. They stop performing, because the moment a parent's presence becomes a mirror, every mistake feels magnified. So yeah, let's JB, you're a guest of honor, so I'll let you. What's your take on that?
I think she's patently false, wrong, just off the rails there. I think I understand where she was going with it, because we have so many experiences around youth sports in general, and this is not unique to soccer, where parents are just belligerent. The referees or the umpire or the officiating crew is just belittled by parents, and coaches are always questioned. You have that parent, especially in the soccer world, that's always yelling at little Johnny or Jamie, kick it, go faster, and joysticking them from the sidelines. So I think she made the statement kind of as this blanket response to a lot of that chaos. But if we're really going to back up, because we had this debate a week ago, even though I wasn't preparing, I'm lucky I'm prepared for this one. But think about it contextually. Let's just take the top level, clubs like yours, like, MLS academies, etc. I think there's a lot of value in being present, not because you're going to coach or yell or encourage or cheer or do any of that. It's that when it comes time to addressing trials or tryouts or age shifts, or you're preparing for, weekend games, to just be aware of what the kid and the coach and the team is trying to do, or maybe your own kid's deficiencies. What are they doing wrong? Where are they making the mistakes? You're at least aware. It doesn't mean you're going to fix it. It doesn't mean you're going to come with all of these answers, but it's just be part of the process. I want to go to the younger ages, because one part of her quote was, when there's eyeballs, kids are, super stressed out. Well, here's the other thing. We all have kids, right? I have 3 boys, and they were little, and at times they were not perfect children. When my eyeballs are on them when they're younger, they're not messing around. And that's the big thing, right? When parents start to complain, why is my kid not getting minutes, or why are they not, thriving? So many of the times, if a coach was really not afraid of upsetting the parent, all they have to say is, pay attention, come watch them in training. They mess around. They're the ones always last in line. They're the ones messing with the other kids. So I think there's just a lot of area in which you don't need to insert yourself into the practice, but by being aware of what's going on, that's a +1. That's a long-winded way of saying I think Abby's way off.
Yeah, I do agree with a lot of what you said. Now, I think I think we've all seen the parent that just tracks, and they move their chair every time and they're in their kid's face, and now they're hollering at their kid, Johnny, pay attention. Well, that's not your job. So that's why I didn't like her I don't like her statement, because it's ever, like, don't do it, period, ever. And that's hard to make those blanket statements in life and anything. Like it's like never play the ball a square ball. Well, sometimes you have to. Like, so I think, yeah, I do agree. I liked your logic on that you get to see, because so much of why kids play, especially in a highly competitive environment, the starting lineups are made in training. And they're like, why isn't my kid starting? Well, because he picks his nose the minute I try to talk to how to explain things. And I also like, for my club, especially, the director I'm in Kansas City is we value our parents. Like our parents are valued, and I like our parents hanging out together. And I like them sitting there. Sometimes when we go indoors, one of the guys bring cards and they play cards together. Like I like our parents hanging out. But I liked your line, don't insert yourself into a trade.
Well, if I could add one more layer to kind of the overall context, and I think this is where pay to play comes into the mix, in so much that clubs need to be willing, in my opinion, to also coach the parents. Parents should not have qualified immunity when they pay that team fee or the dues or whatever, in so much that they can do and say whatever they want. And I think other parents that kind of understand that there are always those, quote, bad apples. Like if I'm in a club and I see the club address the parent that is that helicopter parent and yelling at not only their kid, but other kids, if that club would address that parent and say, look, you're on probation, whatever it is. And if they were to remove the parent and remove the child from the club, clubs are always worried, well, it's a revenue stream and, we don't want to lose the money. You know what? You would lock up more parents that see kind of that proactive step. Yeah. That would be my guess, but that's a hard pill for club directors and coaches to swallow, because it is this kind of service-oriented environment.
Tyler, you've been waiting patiently there. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, because I
see you chomping at the bit.
Disagree with you guys. I would never agree to an absolute.
Yeah, absolutely was what I was looking for. Yeah.
Which the statement starts out as. However, and I, look at this, I maybe more from a coach perspective, as that's my job every day. That, I think that we're needing to trust the coaches, and I think she makes some good points about they need to improve, not impress. So I do understand games are in front of audiences, and I feel like as a parent, we'll have ample information from games. Our kids play tons of games. We'll have ample information from games to decide what is happening that's good for the player or bad for the player, that we can give that feedback after the games. We don't need to do it after every practice. And so I think their time in practice is to improve. And let me tell you, our kids, I understand. I like the discipline answer. I had an experience with my club that we did ask the parents to attend practice so that we could calm the boys down at a really young age. And then they didn't have to come back after a couple practices because they started behaving better. So I do get that. But I think for the most part, if your kid's picking his nose when the coach is talking and not doing what they're supposed to do, then maybe they're not that interested. And you as a parent going and forcing that issue by standing at practice and saying, be interested, isn't the solution. And that's kind of her point of let them find their own freedom in this whole situation and let the coaches coach, and you have plenty of time to give the feedback. I would suggest starting by hanging around a little bit when practice starts, showing up a little bit early to pick up your kid are good moments. And no offense to you guys, but I always thought the parents that bring their lawn chairs and sit and watch their kids practice, I'm like, don't you have other things to do with your life? I always found it to be a little strange. I always associate it back to, what was it, guys? Varsity Blues. God damn, them boys are having the time of their life. And I don't know if I just
was a no talent P, but at least listen.
I just don't. Yeah. I just never wanted to be that person.
I think there's an arc. I think we're kind of like, while it might seem as if we're different sides of the argument here, the reality is this is not an absolute scenario for every single kid in every single club. And this is where I think clubs should really, the onus is on them. I don't think it's on the parents. I think there needs to be more clear-cut kind of an expectation, where you can say, if there's a pyramid of levels of divisions or leagues that your teams play in above a certain Mendoza line, well, then you have a more direct conversation as far as parent participation during practices, et cetera, and teach them, like, if you're going to be around, here are the things that we're kind of working on, et cetera, because a lot of times you're expecting a conversation between a coach, a seasoned, experienced coach, and a 15-year-old puberty laden little kid to come home and explain to you exactly what that conversation went like.
Yeah.
Like that's not realistic.
Yeah. And I think that's the point when there becomes an issue. Like for me, like especially when Harrison was younger, I enjoyed watching him, but I also hid so he didn't know where I was because I didn't want to insert myself, but I enjoyed it. Like I just liked it because I travel all the time, and it was one of my things of like I get to watch them because I'd missed some games, and like this is my chance to watch. But I always hid though. I was not I agree with you on the lawn chair parents.
Well, let me tell you, I as a coach, Josh and JB, I consciously and subconsciously change my behavior towards certain players if their parents are right there. I can't help it. It's not fair to other kids whose parents aren't there. And I feel like now we are tampering with the development of players because I don't want to do it. And I reflect sometimes after practices, even with like not my college kids, right? That's very rare to have parents there. But in the youth system,
it'd be weird if they show up every day. Yeah.
In the youth system,
you keep flying in from Wisconsin.
Bears are from Netherlands, aren't they? I reflect and I know, like I behaved differently towards that kid because their parent was there, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. It's probably bad because I'm not being objective in my teaching.
Well, I think it also goes back to kind of, again, that parent expectation. There's such a popularity of, the popularity of the game, the dream and desires of these players, at every single level, all thinking that they are, D1 to MLS bound, or they're going to get that signing and go over to Dortmund or what. There's a lot of this like dream that is interwoven into this process that's in the head of the kid, and by default through into the parents. And I think parents just need little tips and tricks to try and be cognizant of what is realistic, right? What level is your child? Because we talk often about parents that have unrealistic expectations as to why their kid didn't make the academy team or didn't make the ECNL team. And it's like, if the parent was really objective and they looked at the 18 kids over the span of the season, if your child wasn't clear-cut number one on that team or number two in a special way, then if they were 5, 6, 7, 8 or below, where's your thought process thinking there is a step up? They're on the right team. And the same is true for those that are the bottom 3, 4, 5. If minutes and relevance matter, well, guess what? You're on the wrong team too. Come the next year, you probably need to go down a level if you want to be relevant and get the minutes and kind of thrive at your level. But that takes a lot of self-reflection, not only for the child, who the second they're bumped down a level, well, now, that's a kid thing. They're all going to hate on that. But it's also the parent's ego that gets in the way of all this process.
For sure. And I think it also depends of where you train at. Like, I think we're all envisioning our training facility. When I was in St. Louis with the Missouri Rush fields, there's 4 massive fields. And so it was easy for me to set somewhere else and not, JB's like,
go talk to other parents that are there and like, yeah.
Correct.
Is that code for go to the bar? Because there was a bar right there. I know the facility.
Go get Mexican food.
Go get Mexican food. Yes, yeah, 100%. That is one. Yes, but now we're in Jewel College, but there's still stands, and so we train away on the other parent, away from the parent side, but they sit in the stands. But they're all hanging out together. So I think there is this mix of, now we don't allow our parents on the field, and we don't allow them to fall. Like if they're going to stay, they sit in the stands. And it forces them to hang out together, but we don't allow the chair moving around. We've very clearly set the standards. So most of the time they're able to watch, but they're now hanging out together as parents, which we encourage the parent culture. It may backfire because then parents start to get catty, but for us, we really encourage that parent culture. So our field training setup is kind of conducive to letting parents sit there in the bleachers. And especially like this week, as our high school boys are coming back, we're kind of just scrimmaging to get everyone in the mix of it. And parents want to see that more often and they know, like tonight we do some sessions, and then we're going to scrimmage for 60 minutes to get ready for this weekend. And so parents like to see that, but they also know our standards, and JB has said our standards is parents keep to themselves, but we take very good care of our parents, but they know their standard is you're not there to coach, you're there to watch.
I have two, I would love these to be implemented somewhere. And I've screamed this from the rooftops, just 2 little super simple strategies that, would be a great beta. For example, take teams that are old enough that, there's a certain amount of maturity, maybe at U14, U13 would be pushing it, but U14 and above. Can you imagine if what you did is every single week, kind of like a blind, each kid goes into their training center, or they fill it out at home and give it to the coach, and who's the starting 11, who's the top 11, right? Don't rank 1 to 18, because the kid that's 18 is going to be embarrassed as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the reality of kids, right? Show me a team of players that every kid on that team doesn't know who the best 3 kids are, right? Or all the way down, or who the best, what that starting lineup should be. And what that would do is kind of empower the kids. They could advocate for themselves if they wanted to, but the reality is the groupthink of, because it goes back to college soccer, right? When I was there, when you're in the locker room, you know who the aces are. You know who's leading the team. You know the hierarchy. Young kids know that too. So if there was a way to like fold that into the process, those results, not only the kids wouldn't care because they would all know it to be true, but the parents would be like, okay, kind of, it helps there. And the thing that I've always done with my kids, and this is so dumb, this is like an old school Granite City thing, the old home away clicker, right? The basketball clicker, home away, or like baseball. I don't even know what sport it's for. I use it for soccer. I started at 0, and every time my kid would touch the ball, it's either a positive touch or a negative touch. Positive touch,
Yeah.
right? Completed pass, takes on a player, wins the tackle, shot on goal, whatever. That's a positive, a home. Anything that's a turnover is away. And what he did was just simply figured out the math. He knew that if he would get to 40 touches a game and he was above 80% completion, they had a winning record, right? So I never had to talk to him about his game, just little things like that. And it worked in our car, because that's the worst part. All these kids come off the field. They have to walk to the car, that walk of shame after a bad day, and they have no idea what's about to hit them, as they get into the back seat. So it's these little anecdotal things that Abby, this is where Abby's right. Parents are just way too involved. And I just think they're not smart enough to know what to do. And no offense to parents, you're just really smart at other things.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I love this conversation. I appreciate it. I want to move on to NCAA because I thought this was is going to be interesting as well. For those of you, a lot of people do. The U.S. soccer is getting involved, trying to get involved with the collegiate game. And we all know we can talk the changes later, but so they have a 17-person next gen college soccer committee, and they have recommended that men's Division I go to a full season that they would play year round. So not for the women, but just for the men. So under the proposal, here's the boring information, but under the proposal, 213 men's program, they compete for the same championship, but in place of the traditional conferences, they would play regional with tiers of similarly competitive teams. These tiers would change over time, similar to a promotion relegation. They claim, now this is a big number, estimates that systems could save programs between 25,000 and 350,000. Like, how do you? There's nothing like. It's not like 25 to 30,000. There's a $1,000 difference there. But so anyway, it would apply to just the men's soccer only. Preseason would begin mid to late August. The regular season would run until April, with a break from games and training in December and January. Games would largely be played on weekends rather than the current structure, jamming multiple games into each week between August and December. So that's what we're looking at. What do we, Tyler, as a current college? I know it doesn't quite affect you. I think it would eventually. What do you think as a what do you got there? I see your.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is just going to come down to affordability for a lot of the colleges, which I think at the Division I level on the men's side should be the most easily afforded when it comes to budgets for athletic departments and whatnot. And so I think that we can't overlook the college non-athletic decision-making bodies that are going to be involved in this, as far as like college presidents and college boards, on making sure that it's the right decision for those colleges financially going forward. So I think that's going to be a bigger part of it that probably, I'm guessing with 17 smart humans, hopefully in the room, they address for players.
Hopefully is the key.
For player safety, for, just better play, and then even with what appears to be, promotion relegation decisions There could be a lot of really positive opportunities for the soccer community, with these changes. And so just being at a college, I do look at it from both sides and understand that this has to be two kind of different things as far as like a college entity and, U.S. soccer, or the desire of U.S. soccer to work together through the athletic departments could be really tough.
Yeah, my problem is I think the women's game is getting pooped on again, though. Like, why not make it for the women's game as well? Like, how does that, if you're in a college setting, that you have a men's program that's doing this and not the women's game? Because they said the women's game is unique in several ways, and it's much larger at the college because there's 350 programs. I get that. And the gap in quality between national contenders and mid-majors is much wider. But why would you just do the men's first? I know it's maybe not the direction that I wanted to go, but that stuck out to me, that that really bothered. Like, why just the men's? Because right now, I mean, people travel together. I know you guys, I mean, pretty much a lot of the levels. The big time schools, they get their own private jets. But us small guys who take buses, we travel together and things like that. So why not? I don't know. That stuck out to me, but that bothered me of why not on the women, because you're a women's coach.
And that could be the financial part of it. Like you said, there's how many more?
Well, I have a theory on the why not women's, and the simple fact that U.S. soccer is kind of involved in this process. If you look at the U.S. men's team versus the U.S. women's team, the women's team is a top 3 team in the world. They've won the World Cup. They are playing at the top. The college game is not infiltrated the way that the men's game is with international players. The volume of American women soccer players up through the college ranks, like, it's working. So I think if you just look at it purely from a performance standpoint, the fact that U.S. soccer is involved, what are they looking to fix? Well, they're looking to fix the men's team. That's kind of that's what they're focusing on, is my take on it. I think that.
So that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Like, I kind of like that they're getting back to student athlete, the student part of this first. And that being, take a look at, on the Division I side, a Big Ten school, take a Rutgers, right? You could have a Tuesday or Wednesday midweek game at home, or maybe at Michigan or Michigan State or something, and then come Saturday or Sunday, you're at Washington or UCLA, and you're doing that for 2 months straight. And then if you have a good season, that's just going to keep on going and going and going. But these kids are losing a ton of academic time. And then there's the physical aspect of it too. Those are very big, very fast, very strong bodies that get banged up in a very short period of time. So if you jump to this fall, spring season and you're kind of on an international scale where you got one game a week, you might even get a bye week. So if you got a kid that rolls his ankle today, they could easily miss 6, 7, 8 games, right?
Yeah.
Where in the new format, 2, maybe 3, if it's a bad one. So I think just from that standpoint, it all works and makes sense. The other part of it is just, look, we need better players. Keep them healthy, extend the season. You're now training and playing throughout the year. You're not messing around with the spring season where you have to like bend around all these rules and do like these 5 friendlies. And then there's the non-coaching sessions. That's all stupid. Just, you're providing a ton of money and opportunity for these kids. Let the coach work with them. I don't care. 12 months a year.
Mm-hmm.
Get out of the way of that. So I'm a big fan of virtually every one of these new proposals coming down the pipe.
I agree, because as a current men's coach, it's really tough, especially you're cramming all these games, and you're right. Like, starting lineups are tough. The travel rosters are really, really tough. And if you have a minor, what it's doing, to be honest, we're a subpar Division II school, so we're not competing national championships. We don't make postseason play, so we're just bang average in the GLVC. But we have players that are hiding injuries because they know that if maybe it's a tweaked hammy, but if they miss a game, they're going to miss that week, and now they missed the travel roster. And so now they probably are going to lose their starting spot, and now they're hiding injuries, and now you're getting more and more injuries upon that. And it's the same thing you see with the high school game too. They're hiding injuries. Kids are like, no, I'm okay. No, you're not. Like, and I do I love the game, or even a bye week. It's a tough grind at every level, Tyler. I mean, you see it too. It's a tough grind on every level for these players to be playing that much soccer.
I think too, like that, these recruiting process, there's not a program out there. your program's included, in which you don't talk about the quality of the school and the culture and the camaraderie and the degrees in your future and all this stuff. Yet the way, especially Division I, the way it operates now is you basically only have 2.5 months of true loyalty with the portal windows and everything else and the turnover. NCAA has created this chaos based upon its rules. So if you do go to the full year season, right, you also are taking a lot of that noise out. You want to transfer in the middle, that's fine, but the new rule is you don't get 2 programs in 1 year, right? So you have a lot more time for kind of the culture to actually come to the forefront for more of the players. Now, kids are always going to transfer. That's not going to change, but you're going to eliminate a certain level of the wild, wild west and allow these programs to breathe a little bit longer. I like that part of it a lot as well.
Tyler, how much more can you do in player development when you have take summer out of it? So now you're, say, 8 months out of the year. How much more do you do with player development, and how much better do you think your players develop as human beings at the college level?
Yeah, I mean, I thought JB made a good point. Like, spring soccer is it's tough, and you're working around different things. You're trying to figure out all these schedules. You're playing like 2 half games in one day, and on top of it, because it's not season, you don't want to like step on kids' toes with like their academics and their lives. And I think a more spread out development would be positive because you have more time to develop things that you don't have in the regular season. You could have more of a technical session. You could have more of a fitness recovery session. Then you could have a tactical session. Then you could split up offense and defense. Like right now, we would play, recover, talk about how we are going to have to play this next game based on that opponent. Then it's the day before a game, so you kind of walk through that, then you play, and then it starts over again. That's it. That's the only training that you have. So really the development that you're giving the kids throughout a regular season currently is tactical, and this would really make it I know this is what they want to hear, but would make it a more professional environment on how you can create your, match day -3, -4, whatever you want to do. It really changes a lot of the landscape of development for sure.
One other thing that you pointed it out too is kind of this potential movement away from traditional conferences and into more of a regionalized system, basically cutting the country into fourths or whatever it's going to be. And this tier A, which would be the blue bloods, the ACC programs, Big Ten, et cetera. And then tier B would be mid-majors and below. I love that that's on the table, not because I think it's going to insulate the best schools. I think the parity is so good these days. Just look at the top 25 this past fall when you have a Bryant popping up at number 2 and Bowling Green's in the top 20. It's the level of quality at mid-majors, quote mid-majors, right? The ability for any given Sunday on any game, that's real. That's become very real. So the idea of a pro rel where you break it into the 4 regions and then maybe you have your districts and everybody gets to work up. I think that because when you think of development, player development, and this is the debate I hate, the whole is development versus competition. Should you go to an MLS academy or should you play high school soccer or whatever it is? The reality is whatever we think we've done right, we're not winning games at the top level with our men's teams, right?
Yeah.
So college soccer, its environment, the one thing that is the constant, if you do not win, coaches are going to lose their jobs, right? Kids aren't going to come out and it's going to be hard to recruit. So the onus on winning is so much greater than even in the MLS Academy realm, because we've been around it for a long time. Academy coaches will tell you, winning is not our priority. Our priority, based on the sporting director, we need to find homegrowns. We need the next pro. We need to move a kid or 2 kids up through the pipe. Like that's the unspoken reality of what these academies are doing. So whether or not they go 22-0-1 over a season, but they don't sign 1 kid, well, then that's about a $2 million investment that netted a 0 return. Yeah. Whereas if you have a 22-0-1 college team, that's a big ROI, right? So I think it's this whole, like, we've overthought it. We've put too many whiteboards, too many lettered licenses on the sidelines that are like, we're going to figure this out. No, just compete. Let's get back to some basics. And I think the new format would really fuel good rivalries, regional rivalries. The David and Goliaths would accelerate because now, especially in that ACC region, I wouldn't want to be down there. Because when you've got a Coastal Carolina, when you got a UNC Upstate, and you've got a Wilmington, and these schools that can knock off Clemson or Virginia any day of the week, it's going to be harder for them. They think it's that this non-ACC is kind of going to be like whatever. No, I think it's going to be more difficult. I think we're going to get better players out of it.
And then to kind of the follow-up, the question is then, so I like the format. I think we can agree. I think the format is going to be good for a variety of different reasons. Now, because JB, your point it was really good of that. It's changing because we're not winning at the national level. And we know that. Is the involvement, though, with U.S. soccer in the college game? Because now if you're really looking at an academy, and the top level, so everyone down should be kind of going that same mindset, the same game model, same ideas, same philosophy. So now is U.S. soccer, whoever is the head coach or whatever it is are they injecting what their philosophy and their style of play is into the Division I college game now, and they're basically an extension of a U.S. national team?
I think there would be maybe a slight byproduct, depending on who the gaffer is, right? What kind of personality they have overall, what their relationship is domestically. Like, for example, if we had an American head coach right now and not Poch, I think you would definitely see the American head coach gravitate towards the universities, at least have the conversations. Pochettino is probably like, if you ask him to point out where's Virginia on the map, good luck. Right? It's not going to happen. So I think it's like we're too big. That's always been the standard debate as a nation. When you look at Brazil, you know what their style is. You know what Argentina's style is. The Germans are going to be methodical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When somebody says, well, what's the American style? The only response historically has been great athletes. Well, we don't need athletes. We need soccer players. So, the Northeast style versus the California style versus this, the St. Louis Midwest grit style, like you're going to have difference. And I think this is where regionalizing these programs, you're going to be able to beta test, okay, which national style or culture or grouping, should we lean into? And that actually would be easier for U.S. soccer to look at what region is doing the best. Well, let's find a coach that matches that regional style, on a 2-year or 2+1 deal, right? And then you just feed through, because the European players are what they are. Brad Davis a while back came on the show and we were talking, and he was prepared after we got bounced out of the Gold Cup with the greatest generation of players ever. He came in and said, go back to 2014 team, one of the best teams U.S. soccer's ever had. 16 or 18 of the 22 that were on the roster were the captains or leading scorers or leaders of their teams. You go to that team last year and really the team right now that we have, how many players are the captains of the teams that they play on? It's less than 5.
Yeah.
So we don't have leadership. And I think through this process, you're going to help create more leaders, more winners, which is really what it comes down to.
No, it's valid. I think all of it's good. Yeah.
And we came up with that over a lot of beers. I mean, imagine what we would have came up with without that.
Everything's better with a couple cold brewskis there. So
bingo.
Yeah. Well, this has been good. It's really fantastic. It's a different conversation for us than we have. So we, and obviously it will affect everything. It affects,
well, and there's going to be changes all over. Pretty sure in January, Division II will approve 5-year eligibility, and then the NAIA, they just had their first town hall about 5-year eligibility as well. Those two tend to be hand in hand with everything. So when D2 and NAIA changed to 5 years, I think that that's their way of competing with all these changes as well. So we're just in that. We're still, this landscape, Josh, that we've been talking about for the last 3-4 years is still changing, and so we're just trying to keep up here with Cap.
Well, I think we need to. History is repeating itself over and over and over again when it comes to U.S. soccer. We can go right back to the roots if we look at NASL as a league. Whenever the United States hit the global stage, oh my God, they got a pro league. Oh my God, they got Pele. Oh, look, Beckenbauer, all this stuff. They had to write in a rule to keep 2 Americans on the field at all times, right? And you look at the MLS, you look at MLS rosters, you look at the draft, et cetera. We are only placing somewhere sub 35% are domestic American players for an American league, right? So you have to shift that tide. We can't be 325 million people and be the B squad or the training squad at our own, at San Diego and St. Louis SC and et cetera. Like that's not going to get us where we need to be at the national team level. And frankly, it's not going to help our domestic attendance because fans aren't going to come out for a bunch of players that they can't pronounce the names and they have no ties to.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of synergy that can be created if the NCAA stepped up and said, you know what, this is a domestic league. This is feeder. This is student athletes first. But if U.S. soccer, and let's not kid ourselves, U.S. soccer has to bring money to the table.
Yeah.
You can't make this work on 9.9. Or I mean, some of the blue bloods are down to 4 scholarships, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to get there if all these kids got to pay full fare at 50, 60, 70 grand a year. It's over.
That's a whole nother one. But
that's part 2.
Yeah. But I think you're right though. NCAA Division I is really going semi-pro anyways, and I'm okay with that. And I think having that be a better feeder system, and there were talks, Tyler. I think we talked to USL looked to possibly get in with NCAA, and there's making those guys a legitimate league, and it keeps people here. I do think there's a ton of value in that.
That's the one thing still we didn't mention it. We're doing all the stuff for colleges, but if you look at like a Bryant, for example, they got like 20 internationals.
Yeah.
Bingo.
We're just restructuring the international college soccer players to feed into what?
Well, and all they need to do, step 1, adopt the Olympic rules, set the age limit, right? You can have a waiver of 2 or 3 players on your roster that are older than 23, whatever. If you do that, immediately you're going to cut that probably 20-30%.
There was half of Tyler's roster. They're all 28 and older.
I mean, it's, I was watching a ACC playoff game the other day, and they were talking about this freshman center back on a team who shall not be named. And there was a freshman, blah, 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 25-year-old Swede. And I'm like, wait, those words are not sequential.
Yep.
And when young American players if they're doing their homework and they're watching college soccer and they're looking at these, they are deflated.
Yeah.
They see that as a hill too high to climb.
Yep.
And we can't have that.
100%. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate the time. This is interesting. Been fantastic. JB, thank you for joining us on the Soccer Dad Pod. You can find the Soccer Dad Pod anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's everywhere you can. I Googled it. It's really simple. Soccer Dad Pods. It's a very, very, very good podcast as well.
Were we the number 1 rank on Soccer Dad Pod? I believe so.
First one that came up. Yeah.
I had to pay for that.
Nice. No. Hey, thanks for joining it. No, it's been a different conversation.
Great insight, JB. I loved it.
Yeah, fantastic. So good luck. Who's SLU to play tonight?
They have Davidson.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Fighting stuff.
Go Bills.
Yeah, I like it. Well, good luck, everyone. I really appreciate it. And as for Tyler Tomlinson and JB, the Soccer Dad Pod, thanks so much. This has been Cat Chat Live.